Okay, this video is going to be showing how to modify a Glock trigger to make it much lighter. As you can see, I've got seven Glock 17 triggers here. Basically, what we're going to be doing is, you can see the trigger pad pin is right here. We're going to move it slightly up and to the right, and we're also going to move the hole in the actual trigger bar. And what that does is it changes the geometry. It basically changes your pivot point, gives you a little bit more leverage on the trigger, and it lightens the pull quite a bit. So I guess just follow along. Okay, so there's a few tools that you're going to need to do this job. The one that is absolutely necessary is this. This is a little Dremel diamond tipped bit, but you've got to have something that's diamond tipped. I've tried every other thing. The reason is, whatever coating, I don't know if it's Tenifer or what, that Glock uses on these trigger bars is extremely hard. Even using quality drill bits, it takes about an hour, sometimes less, but at least 20 minutes to get through one of these thin little trigger bars. With this, it eats right through that coating, and then you're through it in like a minute. So this is necessary. Drill bit, you want a 5/64 or 5/64 of an inch bit. These DeWalt, part number DW 1371. They're great. They work really well. That's what I'll be using. And then obviously you'll need a drill, a handheld drill. A drill press would be even better for drilling the new hole in the pad so you can make sure it's straight. It's very important that the hole is perfectly straight. And then you're going to need a Dremel tool. I mean, I guess you don't have to have one, but you're going to need some way to trim the excess off of the trigger bar. You'll see that later. But if you don't have a Dremel, I guess you could use a hacksaw or something. But okay, so let's get started. Alright, now the first order of business is going to be getting this pin out. This one, not this one. This little plastic one you don't want to mess with. We're talking about the steel one right here, the top one. Now as you can see, there's no hole in the back, so you can't see it. So what you need to do is take measurements to locate this pin, kind of triangulate it. Mark yourself a point over there. And the way I do it is I take this punch, which is a 1/16 inch or 1.5 millimeter. I heat it up with a lighter, and then I just push, and I just push right there on the side, and it'll just melt right in until it hits the steel, and it makes a nice clean hole. You can use a drill bit or whatever, but you just need to get a hole big enough for a punch to get in there so you can push it out. So I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, so if you can see this, I've marked my spot right there. Now I'm going to heat up my punch, and I'm going to press it in there to melt through the plastic. And this might not be the best way. You can try to think up your own way to do it. This is just what works for me and what I've been doing. I've done about 7 or 8 of these so far. Get it good and hot so it goes right through. Try to do it quickly so that it doesn't cool down before it gets all the way in. Just push down hard enough to where you can get all the way down to the metal. Okay. Alright, now you're going to need to hammer the pin out from the other side, so you're going to need something with a hole in it to support it. I use my knife. It has this little hole, but a block of wood with a hole or whatever would work just fine. So you're just going to center the pin over that hole. Do some light tapping, and as you can see, it's starting to come out. Make sure that your punch is centered in the hole. As you can see, the bar just came out. Sometimes if you're off center, it'll drive the pin out, but if it's not centered, you don't want to hurt the plastic. So once you get it out about that far, you can just grab it with some pliers and pull it out, which is what I'm going to do, just to make sure I don't mess up the trigger pad. Alright, so there we go. We've got our trigger pad, got our little trigger pad pin, and you can see it's rounded on one end. That end goes in. The flat end is the outside end. And then we've got our trigger bar. And what we're going to do here is we're going to drill this hole a little ways up, and then we're going to cut this excess off. And then we're also going to drill a new hole up and back, and then we'll remount everything. Okay, I'm about to start drilling the hole. Now you need to measure straight up the bar. This first one, I'm actually doing 6. I'm going to make them all slightly different. I'm going to do the 2 at 130, 0.130, as you can see on my caliper. I'm going to do 2 at 0.135 and 2 at 0.140. Any of those measurements should be pretty good. I think 140 actually makes it lighter. 130 is a little bit heavier, still way lighter than stock, but pretty crisp. So I've marked my trigger bar. I doubt you can see it, but I can see it. There's a little bitty mark. Just scratch the finish or whatever so you know where to go. And this is where you need your diamond tip bit. I'm going to make myself a little pilot hole. So hang on while I do that. You need to kind of go around, lay the bit down, and kind of use the side of the bit to cut in. That will widen the hole. Whoops, picked up a little bit of my towel there. You need to go around in a circle like that. That'll widen the hole, make it wide enough for the bit to catch. Alright, that should be good. And now remember, you're not trying to drill with this bit. All you're doing is just getting through the finish. You just want to make a hole deep enough to where, and wide enough to cut through the finish. So now, we're going to drill the hole. Alright. So, here we go. You don't have to go very fast. Actually, it's best to kind of go at a medium speed. It'll start cutting metal shavings immediately. If it's not cutting metal shavings, then it's not going through, and you need to cut more, or you need to take some more of the coating off with the Dremel tool. If you can hear that noise, it starts doing that when it gets to the far side, and sometimes you gotta speed up to get through. That's that coating. I try to widen the hole a little bit like that. Alright. So now we've got our second hole drilled. So now all I've got to do is trim the excess off of here so that it'll fit inside the trigger. Oh yeah, one more important thing that I forgot to mention. On the little safety depression or safety plunger cam, if you see how this it sticks forward kind of like a little L right here, talking about this little area right here that sticks forward, you've got to trim that off. Okay, for the next order of business, I'm going to be using a little Dremel cutoff wheel, and I'm actually probably not going to do this on camera just because it'll have sparks flying all over my desk, so I'll do it off camera and then show you the results. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this extra off. I'm basically going to round the tip like factory. I'm just going to do it right here. So I'll just make a couple of cuts right here, cut that off, and then smooth it out. It doesn't have to be pretty or rounded. Then I'm going to cut this excess off right here. If you don't do this, what it'll do is this thing will run into the right to the right of the chamber. It'll run into the barrel. As the gun's going into battery, this thing will bump up against the barrel, and it'll end up going into battery, but it gets kind of sticky right there as it's going into battery. Okay, so this is the rough first cut. As you can see, I just made 2 angled cuts that cut into the original hole just to chop the tip off. Now I'll smooth it up just a little bit, and then I'm going to cut this little tab off. Okay, so here's the finished product. As you can see, I also, there's usually a little bit of like sharp edges right here by the hole. I also grind that off on both sides because it's kind of sharp from drilling the hole. As you can see, you don't have to do a pretty job on it. It just needs, hell, what I had done before was probably enough. You just got to take the excess off so it fits in the trigger. And then as you can see here, this has got to be ground basically so that it's straight in line with the rest of the arm. So, but do not take any height off of the tip. You're just shortening it this way. You don't want to cut it down any, otherwise you might not fully depress the safety plunger and then your firing pin's going to get blocked. Alright, so next up is the trigger pad. Okay, so now with the trigger pad, you're going to go kind of back and up a little bit, and you want the distance between the 2 holes, the old and the new, to be about 130, 0.130. But without any other measurements, that could be here, or it could be here, it could be here. So the 2 measurements that we're going to use to triangulate it, you want, let's see, 360. This is close enough to 360, 0.360. You're going to go from the very tip down here, this very bottom corner, to the new hole, and then from this top corner right here, where this line meets the front face, that's going to be right about 320. So 320 from here, 360 from down here, and then 130 from the original hole, and I'm talking center to center. So I'm going to make the measurements, mark the new hole, and then we'll get back to drill it. Yeah, also, you don't want to go all the way through when you drill the hole. As you can see here, there are 3 layers to this trigger. There's the left side, middle, and right side. Just drill straight through the left side and the middle. Drill through left and middle, and then make like a dent in the right. The pin is made so that it goes, it sits about halfway through the right side. So you've got to drill into the right side a little bit, but not all the way through. You just need to make a dent in it, otherwise the pin will not sit flush. And if the pin doesn't sit flush, you can't install the trigger into your gun. It's too wide to fit through the hole in the frame. Oh yeah, and you use the same size drill bit as in the trigger bar, 5/64. Okay, so now I've got my hole drilled. As you can see, I did not go all the way through, but I did go about halfway through the right wall. You'll have to use some tweezers or something to dig all the little plastic shavings out of here. But there you go. Once it's cleaned out, then you're ready to install the trigger bar. Alright, so there it is, all finished up. Now I'm going to polish this thing up, make it look real nice, do a 25-cent trigger job to it. And 1 down, 5 to go.